Well, the recent volatility of the stock market has reminded everyone of the fragility of temporal wealth. My next guests are heavily invested in promoting riches of a spiritual kind. Joining us are Senior Rabbi of the Park East Synagogue in Manhattan and President of the globally focused Appeal for Conscience Foundation, Arthur Schneier, and Dr. K.A. Paul, who heads the Christian-based Global Peace Initiative. Welcome, both of you, to Business Unusual. Well, let's start with you, Rabbi, because you head up certainly one of the wealthiest and most influential synagogues in the country, if not in the world, and yet you have something to say about what you think the real ideology and perhaps curse of the world is, which is what?
Well, I think there's a tremendous gain in wealth, but also a tremendous gap between the haves and the have-nots. And the Torah, the Bible, teaches us that man does not live by bread alone. So that Judaism is rather specific. We're on the eve of the Passover festival. We're very specific. When it comes to celebrating a holiday, we reach out to those in need. We don't sit at the Seder table without inviting people who cannot afford to have the Seder for themselves. So that the whole principle of Judaism is tzedakah, of sharing and giving. In fact, on the New Year, Rosh Hashanah, we say that prayer, repentance, and charity avert the evil decree.
And that's pretty fundamental to most religions, and I think that we have seen such a growth of prosperity and such an era of wealth here. Mm-hmm. Does that make people more giving and generous, or the reverse?
I think if you look at all the numbers of giving annually for the last 10 years, the people are more towards giving now than 10 years in the percentage-wise, especially these young millionaires and multimillionaires who have made their money in such a young age. Let's take, for example, Bill Gates, who has not been involved at all. When he first went to India, he's given $100,000 to a country of 1 billion people. I wrote him a letter and said, what is $100,000 for a population of 1 billion people? 400 million people don't have much to eat. And in the last 3 years, you see the change where he has given, if my numbers are correct, about $17 billion to the foundation, which means about $1 billion a year, 5%. They have to, without any choice, invest in charities. So I think the younger generation is realizing, once they're making their money, to be more giving-hearted, kind-hearted towards charities around the world.
I also think that a great deal of credit goes to our system in the United States, which encourages giving of charity. Because when you give to a philanthropic cause, when you give to a worthwhile charitable cause, you are a nonprofit organization and the donor receives a tax credit, which is not the case in England, it's not the case in Germany. So in a way, we are motivated in this country.
That's right.
Which is very unusual.
And what about corporations? What is there, a publicly held corporation, what is the responsibility, and are they doing enough, do you think?
According to the statistical data, corporations have increased their giving, but not commensurate with the tremendous growth in corporate wealth. So I think they still have a way to go.
Now, Dr. Paul, you talk about how, with the Global Peace Initiative, that religious organizations are raising money and doing fine work. Some of them, but others are literally getting filthy rich in the name of religion.
You know, it breaks my heart to see that's happening in few organizations. I'm deeply regretful for that. I was born and raised in India, in a kind, so to say, a nice family, and became a follower of Jesus. Dedicated my life at age 18 when I saw 6 street children living and practically dying without food. Touched my heart as a teenager. Now we help hundreds of thousands of children around the world. I cannot comprehend even I am known for a radical speaker to oppose some of my even own friends who call themselves name it and claim it thing, and you know, you can be rich, God made us prosperous, and living like kings in multi-million-dollar homes, 10,000 square feet homes, and you know, having 4 Rolls-Royce or BMWs, and you know, drawing salaries, selling books of raising $1 million, $2 million a year. I was in Africa this week, I mean, until Saturday. I saw hundreds of thousands of starving people. I've spoken to 300,000 people there.
But you say the food gets there, but it doesn't get to the people.
You know, food, you know, there is some money being wasted. And I had an opportunity to work with Mother Teresa closely. The best example probably you could ever take. I would challenge, if anybody watching, is more towards Christ-centeredness, living like Christ lived, walking like Christ lived.
And we're trying to be a little ecumenical here, so let me ask the rabbi also. You're both were victims and were moved early on by horrible things. Your parents were killed in
I'm a Holocaust survivor.
Holocaust survivor.
I came to the States in 1947. Correct.
And how that influences you. Do you think that the children of privilege have the same sense of compassion? There's a lot of talk about being just sort of devoid of compassion now because we see so many horrible things happening. But do you think without that sort of personal experience that you can reach out as much?
Well, I think the personal experience in a way transforms your orientation in life. And as a survivor, I've always asked myself the question, why did I survive? And why didn't so many others perish? And if you do survive, then you have an obligation to pay back in gratitude to God and pay back to humanity. And this is basically my ministry. This is my rabbinate. I am alive by the grace of God, and I've seen during the course of the worst crimes perpetrated, you know, between man and man against humanity.
We're going to have to leave it there on that note, but as we do go into this Holy Week, I wish both of you happy holidays and continued good works. Rabbi Arthur Schneier and Dr. K.A. Paul, thanks for joining us today on Business Unusual. And coming